In this video, we're going to look at how to solve for a contract curve given two consumers with the following utility functions. Our objectives: solve for the contract curve in this two-person exchange economy, graph the contract curve in an Edgeworth box. Note that the contract curve is a curve or line connecting all Pareto optimal points. Pareto optimal: it is not possible to make one person better off without making at least one person worse off. Here's consumer 1's utility function and consumer 1's initial endowment of good x and good y. One thing to note: if y is less than or equal to 2, this consumer will get utility equal to 0. Consumer 2, same setup, same looking utility function. Once again, if y is less than or equal to 2, utility will equal 0. And the initial endowment here for the consumer is 7 units of good x and 3 units of good y. So in total, we have 10 units of x, 7 plus 3, and 10 units of a good y. For consumer 1, we're going to take the partial derivative of the utility function with respect to x, and we get back the following. The marginal utility of good x is just y minus 2. And we get the marginal utility of good y by taking the partial derivative of the utility function with respect to good y, and we get back x. Forming the marginal rate of substitution, the marginal utility of good x over the marginal utility of good y leaves us with this result. Consumer 2, basically the same thing. Marginal utility of good x is y minus 2. Marginal utility of y is just x. Forming the marginal rate of substitution, we get this. And the marginal rate of substitution for consumer 1 will be set equal to the marginal rate of substitution for consumer 2. So making our substitutions, we have the following. Just rewriting that last step. And now cross-multiplying the x's in the denominator. And note there are 10 units of each good. So x subscript 2 will equal 10 minus the consumption by consumer 1. And y subscript 2 will equal 10 minus the consumption of good y from consumer 1. Making those substitutions in above. So where we have x subscript 2, we replace that with 10 minus x subscript 1. And where we have y subscript 2 on top here, again, we make a replacement. And now we're just going to simplify. So rewriting that last step and simplifying some more. This xy term and xy term cancel. This 2x, bringing that over to the right-hand side, leaves us with 6x there. Moving that minus 20 over to the right-hand side. And now dividing through by 10, we have the contract curve. And I'm going to show this is only true if x is greater than 0. So the important here is that the contract curve does not include 0 and 2. At this point of x equals 0 and y equals 2, consumer 1's utility is 0. So remember from the first slide, consumer 1 or consumer 2's utility will equal 0 if y equals or is less than 2. So in this case, at this point, consumer 1's utility is 0. So giving the 2 units of good y to the other consumer does not harm consumer 1. Still leaves a consumer with 0 utility, but makes consumer 2 better off. A Pareto improvement. So therefore, this x equals 0 and y equals 2 is not part of the contract curve, even though it fits this equation. So graphing the contract curve here, we have it going from y equals 2, x equals 0, to consumer 2's y equals 2, x equals 0. But again, note the 2 points at x equals 0 and y equals 2 are not on the contract curve. So those are not on the contract curve. I will point out, however, that x equals 0 and y equals 0, these two origins, are part of the contract curve. It would be impossible to give one consumer more of a good at the expense of the other consumer without making one of them worse off if we're at the two endpoints here at the origins. All right, that's it. I'll stop here.